Hotline. Rob, earlier Bump and I were debating, who are our three best teams in the NFC right now? And we were torn on whether the Seahawks were 3, 4. Where do you put the Rams? Both of us have the Bucs as probably number 1 right now. Where would you put the Seahawks in a very quick power ranking of the top 3 NFC teams? I know I'm springing it on you.
Well, I think you have to put the Buccaneers first. They're playing the best football at the moment, and Baker Mayfield, fantastic again at the weekend. I think then after that, you could probably put about 10 teams in a hat and just pull one of them out and say that's the second best team.
That's what we struggled with.
Look, the Seahawks are in the mix. You know, they're definitely in the mix. The Eagles have looked susceptible all season. Now they're losing football games. The Rams were not very good. I watched a lot of that Ravens game out the corner of my eye the weekend, and they don't look very good either. And they lost to the 49ers. The 49ers just keep losing players every single week. The Lions didn't look that great this weekend. So even the Packers don't even look as good as I think everybody expected. So I think probably based on the talent and the personnel, I'd probably put Green Bay maybe second, competing with the Lions for that spot. But then I think the Seahawks are as good as anybody else in this NFC.
First, Rob, I want to say your hat game is on point today. Go Cougs. How did you tell me the story behind that? What's going on?
Well, I don't have an affiliation to any college in America. So unlike the Seahawks, I'm kind of like open-minded about which teams I'll wear a hat for.
Okay.
And I went over when I was over in Seattle. I do have a couple of friends who are big Cougs. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to look for a Cougs hat. And I went around all the different stores in Seattle to try and find one. And across the road from Lumen Field, there was one store finally had some Cougars gear. So I thought, I'm going to get this and wear it with pride. It's not really brought the Cougars much luck so far, but hopefully that's about to change in the future.
Yeah, it's a humbling existence, just letting you know. Being a
Makes
Coug.
you stronger.
It's all good
probably.
though.
I wouldn't know.
All right, to the Seahawks. JSN has just been on a tear, but the emergence of A.J. Barner has been fun to watch. I've been trying to, compare him to the other good tight ends in the league, the Browers, Kittle, all those guys. What do you think his potential is? Where do you think he stands when it comes to, comparing him to some of the best tight ends in the game?
Well, people like Brock Bowers are just the different animals, aren't they, completely? Like Brock Bowers looks like he came from a different planet, the way that he plays the tight end position, and he did at Georgia. And you just have to look at how bad Georgia's offense has been in the season and a half since he left and joined the NFL. And then, you have sort of the Kittles there who are they're unstoppable players. Like how many times have we watched the Niners play the Seahawks? And like it's a big 3rd and 10 or something like that. And then you just know where it's going to go. It's going to go to George Kittle. He's going to find a way to get open. And is A.J. Barner at that level yet? Probably not. But he is in an area now where he's getting a lot of touchdowns. He's shown that he can get downfield as well. He can get open. His blocking, he was drafted and blocking was seen as a strong point for him, which means that you can use him in any situation, which is going to really help him as his career develops. I think that he's probably not in the second tier of tight ends nationally yet, but trending upwards. And you always kind of get a feeling when a player is emerging into something when they start getting a lot of national attention. And when you watch the broadcasts, the Seahawks game against the Jaguars was a UK broadcast this weekend. So we had a UK broadcasting team. And then we get the American footage as well. And when the American broadcasters are talking and highlighting A.J. Barner, it's a surprise he's not seen the ball yet. And then you get back into the studio in the UK and they're talking about A.J. Barner. You know that this is a player that is starting to make a few headlines. So he's getting noticed. And hopefully over the rest of this season, he is going to take that step and maybe can get into that mix where he can be considered amongst the likes of Sam Laporta in Detroit.
I've loved so much of what I've seen from the Seahawks pass game, from Sam Darnold. The pass catchers, especially coming out of a tough week 1, have been so excellent, and that's great to see. While we're talking about, how the Seahawks can make themselves a top 3 team or a top team in the NFC, I think the run game taking off more consistently is a big part of that equation. What do you see there in terms of sometimes you'll see Ken Walker for, 15 yards or a 30-yard rushing touchdown, and then other times it feels like they go nowhere?
I think the blocking is just not been good enough so far. Usually what you see with a typical running game is you may well have a couple of runs that don't go anywhere, but then, you can run up the gut and there is a 9 yards there or there is a 7 yards there. And the Seahawks don't have enough of those runs. It's not about necessarily having a 25-yard run or something like that. It's about, can you get into 2nd and 1? Or can you get into 3rd and 2 because of your running game? And they're not doing enough of that. And then the outside zone, they seem to have a couple of plays in outside zone that work, and then the opponent adjusts and takes that away, and then everything kind of gets funneled inside, and they're not really doing enough there. So I'm going to put this down to a young offensive line who are still working out this system. Pass blocking wise, they've been keeping Sam Darnold clean. The fact that he only had 1 sack at the weekend, and that was on an all-out blitz, and I think that's probably done the quarterback because, if I can sit there and I've got enough time to think, it's a blitz, Sam, you've got to get the ball out. He probably needs to get the ball out a little bit quicker there, so I'm not going to pin that on the offensive line, but the run blocking just hasn't been quite good enough, and I think it's for both running backs. I think it's a little bit strange, like week 1, everyone was kind of groaning at Ken Walker. Now everyone's groaning at every time Zach Charbonnet gets a carry. I don't think it's the running backs. I don't think it's that one player's more talented than the other, or one player needs to get all the carries and the other player not. I think it really is just about they've got to get the blocking. They've got to win up front. They've got to win more battles up front and execute this system. And hopefully it's maybe going to take a couple more weeks, but they will get there.
Last week we saw Nick Emmanwori lead the team in tackles. It was fun to see how they used him in the box, over the top, in coverage. What did you see out of him? What'd you like?
What I like most is just you notice him. You notice him on the field. Like, he was around the ball all of the time. When you can sort of put him down in the box there, and he's the one who's sort of rushing to try and get to the quarterback, create a bit of pressure, that he's the one making the tackle. His tackling was generally quite secure. But you also know that he's got this amazing athleticism that if needing to drop into coverage, you can do that. You can move him around the field. He's going to be more of an X-factor weapon as going forward. They traded up for this guy. They saw him as a first-round level talent, and they moved way up in round 2 to go and get this player because they think he can be something really special. You aren't doing that for a player unless you really believe in this guy. So what we've seen through these first 2 weeks is very, very exciting. I know things like PFF, and you can take a lead PFF, they've got him graded really highly amongst the safeties already for these 2 performances. But I think it has to be exciting, especially what you've seen Mike McDonald do with the similar player in Baltimore. You're thinking, can the Seahawks have their own version of that? If they can't, well, they're going to need it as well, because the secondary, there are a few other players that are having issues. They've had some injuries there. So if someone like Nick Emmanwori can contribute and have a big impact, that's going to be a difference for this defense.
That may be your answer to this question here, Rob, but is there a question you're waiting to see answered by this team? It could be the team as a whole. It could be a phase of the ball, an individual player, but something where you're like, man, my confidence grows if I can see them meet this moment.
Yeah, one of those would be, I'm waiting to see who they're going to trade for. Because when I listen to people like Adam Schefter saying there's going to be at least a dozen more trades between now and November the 4th, and you hear about the fact that there are already teams, we've seen that the Titans have given up on the season. They've said, we are now in a sort of long-term plan to who's going to be the next coach, who's going to be the foundational pieces that we build around. They're going to be sort of trading away talent. You've got to imagine that Miami Dolphins are pretty close to that. The Jets as well. The Jets are 0-6. They're like an absolute disaster. We were all treated to that in England last weekend when they played the Broncos.
Lucky you.
So, yes, yeah, there are going to be some trades. And the Seahawks have got to do something for me. I think it's probably more about the secondary depth at this point. It's not so much about the pass rush. I know that was kind of the focal point for a little while. Can they go and get another edge rusher? When you get 7 sacks against the team that's not giving up sacks, suggests it's not as big a problem as maybe a few people thought. It's that depth in the secondary. Can they go and add another cornerback? Can they go and get a bit more depth at that safety position? That's what I'm looking for now. Maybe even linebacker. I think that's the question that I'm waiting to see answered here. Who are they going to trade for? Are there going to be a couple of moves? Because we know one thing about John Schneider is it gets to this time of year, and he often makes a trade.
Yeah, last week we saw Cooper Kupp probably have his best day as a Seahawk, reach the end zone, had a big, 29-yard catch. So far on the year, he's second on the team, I believe, in receiving yards. Are you getting what you wanted out of Cooper Kupp? What do you see from him?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, I'll just be the best receiver in the NFL for a few weeks. Like, when you were getting somebody who was reaching that level, all you really needed complementary pieces. And all we needed to see from Cooper Kupp was be a good number 2. All we needed to see from the tight ends was contribute, make some big third down conversions, go and get the occasional red zone touchdown. And then, can Torrey Horton fill in? Can Derek Young make a few plays? Stuff like that. To see what Cooper Kupp has been doing with his blocking as well, not just his receiving, that's exactly what you need. And now he's added a touchdown to the mix. He's made some really big plays. His third down plays the previous week, really big. I'm really liking what we're seeing from Cooper Kupp. This is exactly what you needed. He's not going to be the guy who gets 2,000 yards again. He needs to be this guy now for a year or two, and I think couldn't be happier with what he's doing for the Seahawks at the moment.
Has Sam Darnold met or exceeded your expectations?
He's got to have exceeded everybody's expectations.
Right.
I know he had a great year last year for Minnesota, and perhaps we need to start seeing this as back-to-back great years from him. Forget the last two games. There were so many reasons why those two bad games happened, and very few of them were down to Sam Darnold. That was massively overstated. But he is playing so well. It's a privilege to watch a player emerge like this at the age of 28 and think he could be your quarterback for the next few years. You don't have to think about drafting anybody. You don't have to think about going and acquiring anybody. He can be the guy that can get you sort of down the line into the playoffs and maybe have a bit of a run there. That's the thing you need. It's what every single team needs who wants to be a serious team. He is delivering. He looks poised. He's explosive. His arm looks great. He's not making that many mistakes. He's not flawless, but who is they? Like, nobody's flawless at the moment. So I think it's great for the Seahawks. He has been a huge boost, and no disrespect to the quarterback is replaced. While that quarterback time of it and Sam Darnold it's looking like an inspired move by the Seahawks.